find out later. Okay. So they rented a house.
On Indian River Drive, and he had practiced in Fort Pierce. That bank building that was right across from my dad's office, bank building on 2nd Street and Avenue A. He had a big office in there. But he wasn't well, so he didn't work too long. So I don't know where the money came from, but he had ended up with a chicken farm behind that big
Yeah,
house.
you're talking about Grandpa?
Grandpa.
Grandpa Ralph, Samuel.
And they had this big house in White City, which I just love. It was 2 stories, but really 3 because the attic, you could have stood up in it.
And that's the house on Magnolia.
Charlotta. Well, Charlotta comes
It curves
in,
around.
and then is that Magnolia the one?
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's that big old house.
The property goes back to the river.
It did. Doesn't now, but it did run all the way back. And he had a little grove, and he had a little farm. He grew tomatoes, and they were beautiful. And he'd go down to the White City store and sell them. And Mr. Pagan that owns the store told me one time, Dr. Rouse, the only person I know that ever puts the best fruit on the bottom instead of putting it on the top and get down to the to the not so good pieces. He always put the best strawberries on the bottom, and they did all right.
PK did that too.
Did he do that with pine?
With pineapples.
Pine? Did he really do that?
He got upset that some farmers would even pack oranges in those orange bags, and where the label was in the middle, the poor fruit would be in the middle.
That's good commentary on our family background and on both sides of the family. I'm sure yours is the same way, Pat. Anyway, after I grew up in a little house right next to the church in White City, the old frame building was that memorial, and I loved that house. It was the only Spanish style house in White City, like the ones that are on the way going out. There are a lot of them. But they had a lot of unique features. There was a little built-in china cabinet between that kitchen and the dining room. And it had little tiny pane glass windows. And Mama didn't keep anything in it, because that was my hiding place. When Daddy would come home at night, she'd put me up there, and I could look out and see him looking for me. And he looked all around the house and couldn't find me, because I was behind these glass doors. He was the best Daddy. And we lived there until I was 4. Mrs. Platt, my other grandmother on the other side, couldn't live alone, so Aunt Dot lived with her until she moved. She had already been married. Nobody knew that. They had eloped. Didn't tell anybody. After Uncle Alan got out of the car.
And Uncle Alan were already married.
Were already married. But someone had loaned him money to go to the university. He was afraid if anybody knew they were married, they would renege on the loan. So they were married for a long time, and nobody knew it. Then when he graduated, it all came out. They ran off to Okeechobee to get married. But she lived with Muddy, and then when Uncle Alan graduated, she left, and Muddy couldn't stay alone, so she came to live with us. And there wasn't enough room.
About how old were you then?
I was probably 3 and a half, but I remember it. I remember her snoring. Yeah, I remember her.
And that was in the little house next to the church on Midway.
And I had a little room. Dad and Mom had a bigger room. And Muddy had a bed in a fairly large side dining room. And I could hear her snoring, and it scared me to death. And Mama said one day, one night, I said, "What is that?" And she said, "That's just Muddy snoring." She said, "Oh, I thought it was an old conch." Skunk. I didn't know skunks. Anyway, we stayed there until it just got too crowded. And Muddy had this big house over on Oleander. So we moved over there. And we lived there till I was 12. And we moved then, Phil and Dolly were both born there, but they were born at home because Mama had such an easy time with me that we just used a nurse who lived on Citrus. She came over and took care of Mom, took time to call the doctor. Because they had to go to the store and call the doctor. Nobody had phones. And he came out and delivered Dolly and Phil. I was over across the street at the Hanson's big 2-story house. Dolly was born, when Phil was born, I was down at Grandpa's. And I remember Daddy came down and told me he loved us, but he was happy to have a boy. And the first thing he said when he came into Grandpa, "You got a little brother." He was so excited. We lived there. It was a nice house. But we had a lot of visitors. If anybody's kids wanted to come home, they came there to stay. And there were only 3 bedrooms. So Uncle George would come and go. And he and Dad, Dad expected people to pay for their way. If George was there, he would pay, for part of the food. Dad came once or twice. I think that's when Uncle Alan was trying to get a job in Pennsylvania or something, I don't know. But there was just, it wasn't his house. And Daddy was a disciplinarian, and Muddy didn't like us to be disciplined. And I don't really know what happened. My parents never argued or in front of us. Muddy would carry on. But one day, Daddy had grandiose plans of property. And every time something would come up, it was during the Depression, real cheap. So we had ended up with 3 rental properties in White City. We got money off 2 of them, and one of them we didn't. One behind the church. There's one over, well, it's not there anymore. It was off Citrus, a little Tangerine Grove. And then the one we ended up with that David has now. And we moved there, and I was only 12, so it didn't really bother me, but it did kind of bother me. We didn't have an inside bathroom. We only had 2 bedrooms, so Dolly and Muddy and I all slept in one room with Phil. I really don't remember where he slept, probably on the sofa. But it was calmer there, just the whole atmosphere was, I liked being there.
And how did it turn out that you moved from Muddy's house over to that house?
Just because, I can't remember I think that's what Muddy said, "Don't spank Dolly, spank me." My daddy was spanking Dolly, which she deserved, and that's okay. She knows how I feel about that. She's told me several times, "I wonder why you didn't tell me what I did. I wonder why you didn't get spanked for that, Betty." I always wondered. And I don't even remember, but anyway. Anyway, suddenly we moved. And I think
from Muddy's house in
Muddy's
Oleander.
house. I think my dad didn't feel that he could do what he needed to do as the head of the house in someone else's home. I don't know what went on after that little episode, but she's so Sammy don't spank Dolly, spank me. And so, a couple of days, we had moved to this little rental house that
On
was empty.
First Street.
On First Street. And we just moved in, and Muddy moved with us. But that's all right, it was Daddy's house. And we didn't have uncles and aunts coming to live with us like that. Not that he didn't like them, he loved them. But he and George, when George was there, they loved each other. They liked to argue. They both enjoyed arguing. But I hated that. I hate arguing. And sometimes they'd change sides if that was a political thing, So it was just for the love of arguing. But it would bother me so, I'd go out and swing to try to get away from the noise because they hollered. Finally, one day Mama said, "Georgie, it's just like my daddy says." I couldn't stand it. But, and George I love, but he didn't come live when we were on West First Street. I mean, that part of my life was over. It was nice and calm. Daddy was good at practically everything. He wired the house. It was not, didn't have electricity. He did the plumbing. All we had was an old pump. It was primitive. And we had an outside bathroom. After we'd been there, God took care of us. We knew the Lord and we prayed, but I don't think we prayed for such practical things like people do now, knowing how God is interested in every facet of our lives. Maybe Mama prayed for a bathroom. I don't know. She never suggested we join her in that, but one night, this was during the Depression, and I thought it was Saturday Dolly said it was Thursday, who knows. They had what they call bank night at the Sunrise Theater. And you'd go to a good movie, and you get a ticket, and at the end of the, I think it wasn't that night, but within a few days, you'd find who won. Whoever won got $100. So we went one night, and lo and behold, we won. I thought Daddy won. Dolly says, Mama won. This is the way we function. Of course, I'm 5 years older. You would think I'd remember, but who knows. We won $100. So the first thing Dad did was go out, and he got this beautiful bathroom set for $100. Everything matched. I like matching things. Muddy sinks did not fit. Matching tub, sink, and toilet. And he cut one of the bedrooms a little smaller and put the bath. He did all the plumbing. He did it. I think he had somebody dig a septic tank, obviously. He did everything. I think David said he's had to kind of overlook some of the rustic things that were there when, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's all been replaced now.
But it worked. We had
Yep.
the inside, and because he kept the outside one too, if we needed to go to the bathroom on a little plan, we were familiar with that. But it was so nice to have. Oh, we had to had a big galvanized tub. Mama would fill the tea kettle 2 or 3 times for hot water, and then fill cold water for take a bath in the kitchen. That wasn't all that much fun, especially when you were 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The little kids didn't mind, I don't think. That was not, Anyway, what else?
How long?
I stayed there until, well, Mama was there till she died, and then John till he died, and now our grandson has it, and his wife and little baby. Isn't
Yeah,
that neat?
that is. That's
Mama
exciting.
would just love it. She loved the way he's doing the yard, and I think that's real special. And then we went, in between there, we went to Philadelphia because Daddy needed more schooling. That was when I was about 2. You want to hear about?
Now, the battery's about to run out,
Okay.
so
All
we'll
right.
just stop now.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I'm not